Hey everyone. Welcome to AfriHeart Stories, your go-to spot for African tales. Don't forget to like, subscribe and drop a comment. Now sit back and enjoy. Folarin stood at the front gate of his childhood home, heart racing. His hand clutched Amakas gently as the late afternoon sun dipped over the rooftops of Ibadan. The air was thick with the familiar scent of fried plantain and hibiscus. For a second he wanted to turn back, but Amakas' eyes, warm and hopeful, held him still. "You ready?" he asked, trying to smile. Amaka nodded, though she smoothed the edge of her modest Ankara gown for the 10th time. "I hope she likes jollof," she said with a nervous chuckle. "I brought it, with smoked catfish." Folarin leaned down and kissed her cheek. "If she doesn't like you, then she's the one with the problem." He pressed the doorbell. Within seconds the heavy wooden door creaked open, revealing Imaida Degbite, a retired school principal known for her stern face and sharper tongue. Her once black hair was now wrapped tightly in an ash-colored gelly, and her brown eyes scanned Amaka head to toe, without a smile. "Folarin," she said, stepping aside, her voice flat. "You didn't tell me you were bringing someone." "I wanted it to be a surprise," Folarin said, stepping inside and guiding Amaka along. "Well," Imaid muttered. "It certainly is." Amaka dipped in a respectful curtsy. "Good afternoon, Ma. It's an honor to meet you." Imaid responded with a nod so faint, Amaka wondered if she imagined it. They entered the living room, spotless, polished, filled with lace doilies and framed certificates. The clock on the wall ticked like a warning. Folarin cleared his throat. "Mum, this is Amaka. She's a fashion designer, well, a seamstress, and she's very special to me." "Seamstress?" Imaid repeated as if tasting something sour. "So you've come back from Lagos, with a tailor?" Amaka's smile faltered slightly. I specialize in bridal wear and occasion outfits, Ma. I run my own shop in Surulere." "How lovely," Imaid said coolly. "So you cut and sew. Interesting." Folarin shot his mother a look. "Mum, please." Imaid ignored him. "What happened to Tiniola? The lawyer's daughter? Or that nice girl who was studying medicine? You used to have good taste." Amaka sat silently, her hands folded over her handbag, trying not to show the sting. But Folarin was losing patience. "I didn't bring Amaka here for a resume review," he said firmly. "I brought her because she's the woman I love." Silence. Imaid stood still for a long moment before letting out a small, humorless laugh. "Well, I hope love can pay rent," she muttered as she turned toward the kitchen. "Mum?" Folarin called after her. "No need to shout," she said. "Dinner is on the table. I made egusi soup." Amaka hesitated. "I brought jollof rice, Ma. I thought I could share some." "I didn't ask you to cook," Imaid cut in from the kitchen. "We have enough food here." Folarin clenched his jaw, then glanced at Amaka, who gave him a reassuring smile and whispered, "It's okay." But it wasn't okay. At dinner they sat around the long glass table. Imaid served the food herself, placing Folarin's plate before him with care, then Amaka's without looking at her. "So," Imaid began, chewing slowly. "Your people, where are they from?" "Enugu, Ma," Amaka replied. "Oh," Imaid said with raised brows. "No wonder." Folarin paused mid-bite. "No wonder what, Mum?" "Nothing," Imaid said, dabbing her lips with a napkin. "I just remember what your father used to say, marry someone who can elevate your name, not drag it." Amaka said nothing. She looked down at her food, which suddenly didn't taste like anything. Folarin set his spoon down. "That's enough, Mum." "I'm just saying," Imaid continued. "You're an architect. You've worked hard. You deserve a woman of class, not—" "Not what?" Folarin asked, his voice low. Imaid looked him in the eye. "Not under my roof." Silence dropped like a stone. Folarin stood up. "We'll go." "No," Amaka said softly, touching his wrist. "Let's not cause a scene." "You didn't cause a scene," Imaid replied, sipping her water. "You just don't belong in one." Folarin's face was stormy. "You know nothing about Amaka. She's more decent than anyone you've tried to push on me." Imaid smiled thinly. "We'll see how long that lasts." "I'm not here to fight," Amaka said quietly. "I just wanted to meet you and, maybe one day, be part of your family." "You're not part of it," Imaid snapped. "And you never will be." Amaka blinked fast, fighting the sting in her eyes. She pushed her chair back gently and stood. "Thank you for the food, Ma. It was lovely." Her voice didn't shake, but her hands did. Folarin followed her, grabbing his keys. "I'm sorry you feel this way, Mum," he said, lingering by the door. "But I won't let you treat her like this." She's not for you, Folarin. That girl is a phase. You'll regret this. He opened the door. The only thing I'll regret is if I let you poison what we have. They stepped out into the night. Outside, Amaka exhaled deeply. I shouldn't have come. No, Folarin said. She shouldn't have treated you like that. They walked to the car in silence. Then Amaka whispered, she doesn't think I'm good enough. Folarin looked at her with fierce tenderness. She doesn't get to decide that. Behind the curtains, a maid stood watching them. Her jaw was tight, her pride high. But something deep within her stirred, something that would not let her rest tonight. Because for the first time in years her son had walked out, not just with his heart, but with someone else's in his hands. The following Sunday, Amaka insisted they return. She's your mother. I don't want you to break ties because of me. Folarin sighed as he drove them through the quiet streets of Bodija. You don't owe her anything, Maka. I'm not doing it for her, Amaka replied, eyes fixed ahead. I'm doing it for us. This time a maid welcomed them with a stiff nod. Hope you didn't come empty-handed, she said, barely opening the door. I brought aqua and okra soup, ma, Amaka said, lifting the carefully wrapped bowls. Well, put it in the kitchen. I made pounded yam already. Lunch was quiet. The sound of cutlery scraping porcelain filled the room. So, Amaka, a maid began, folding her napkin delicately, how much does a seamstress make these days? Enough to support a family? Folarin narrowed his eyes. Mom? No, it's fine, Amaka cut in politely. It depends on the orders, ma. Some months are better than others, but I save. A maid sniffed. So you're a hand-to-mouth type. Interesting. Amaka blinked. Excuse me? I mean, a maid continued, sipping her juice, my son earns in 6 figures monthly. Stitch fabric. It's not a match. Mum, that's disrespectful, Folarin snapped. Stop it. A maid turned to him, calm as ice. I'm protecting you. If she can't even speak proper English, listen to her pronunciation. What future will your children have? That was the final blow. Amaka stood slowly, heart pounding. Thank you for the meal, ma. I need to go. Folarin stood too. We're leaving. A maid didn't budge. Don't run, Folarin. You always run when you don't like the truth. This is not truth, he hissed. It's pride. And it's ugly. Back at their apartment, Amaka sat on the floor, folding napkins into roses, an old habit that calmed her. I can't change who I am, Fola, she whispered. He knelt beside her. And you shouldn't. She has to learn. You're the one I chose. But not the one she wanted. Folarin cupped her face. You stood by me when I had nothing. You listened to my dreams when I didn't believe in them. You sewed me a suit for my first pitch meeting. Amaka chuckled. That jacket was too tight. But I got the contract. They kissed long and slow. Later that week, Folarin visited his mother alone. You were wrong to speak to her like that, he said, setting a grocery bag on the table. A maid didn't look up from her crossword puzzle. She doesn't belong here. I'm marrying her. A maid's pen stopped. Not under my roof. She's not asking to live here. Just to be accepted. You'll thank me later. No, Mum, he said firmly. You'll regret this later. Outside, Amaka waited in the car, unaware of the conversation but sensing the tension. When Folarin returned, he said nothing, just held her hand all the way home. At a cafe near the studio, Amaka met with her friend Kemi. She doesn't like me, Amaka confessed, stirring her zobo. She's an old-school principal. She probably expected you to be a banker or something, Kemi said. She said I can't speak English properly. Kemi scoffed. You? Maka, you speak better than half of these girls. She's just being wicked. Back home, Folarin stared at an old photo of his late father, Chief Adegbite, beside a maid. They looked so proud. So traditional. He remembered when depression nearly swallowed him after university, when rejections piled up and his architecture dreams crumbled. And how Amaka, then just a neighbor with a sewing machine and wide smile, would knock daily with snacks and encouragement. Try again, Fola. You'll design skyscrapers one day. Now he stood between those two worlds, the proud legacy of the Adegbite name and the quiet strength of the woman who revived him. That night he told Amaka, whatever it takes. I'm not losing you. She smiled, wiping away a tear. Even if I have to sow love into every room of her house? Folarin kissed her palm. Especially then. 2 days later, Amaka was measuring fabric in her shop when the bell jingled. She looked up and froze. A maid stood there, dressed immaculately, holding a small leather purse. Good afternoon, Ma, Amaka greeted cautiously. A maid stepped inside, glancing around the neat but modest space. So this is where you play with fabric. I design here, yes, Amaka replied, choosing her words carefully. I came to offer you something, a maid said, opening her purse. She pulled out an envelope and slid it across the table. What is this? Amaka asked, her throat tightening. Money. Enough to start over. Find someone else. Leave Follerin. Amaka stared at the envelope, then at the woman who handed it to her. I'm not for sale, Ma. This isn't about you. It's about my son's future. I am his future. A maid's voice sharpened. You're a thread in his fabric. Easy to cut. Amaka picked up the envelope and handed it back. I've stitched every pain I've known into strength. If you think you can buy me off, you don't know me at all. A maid's face hardened, but she didn't speak. Amaka walked to the door and opened it. Respectfully, Ma, you can leave now. Without another word, a maid walked out, her heels echoing down the corridor. But the fear didn't echo in Amaka's heart. It had been replaced by something stronger, resolve. That evening she told Follerin everything. I'll talk to her, he said, rage burning in his eyes. No, Amaka whispered. Let her keep her money. I have more value than that. And for the first time, Follerin saw her not just as the woman he loved, but the woman he could never afford to lose. A week passed in silence until Sunday afternoon. A maid summoned Follerin for a family meeting. Come alone, she'd said curtly on the phone. There are elders who need to speak with you. Follerin hesitated, but curiosity got the better of him. He didn't tell Amaka. At the house, he walked into a living room packed with relatives. Uncle Deo, Auntie Bose, Pastor Adelaide, even Mama Stella from the neighborhood. What's going on? He asked, brows raised. A maid stood in the center, her arms folded. An intervention. Pastor Adelaide rose. Follerin, you are like a son to me. But this girl, Amaka, she's not your level. I'm sorry? Follerin blinked. She will clip your wings, Auntie Bose chimed in. You're a high flyer. Don't marry down. She's not down? Follerin snapped. Mama Stella clucked. Is she even from a reputable family? These things matter. Follerin turned to his mother. You brought all these people, to insult the woman I love? We brought them to help you see reason, a maid said coolly. If you marry her, don't expect my blessing. Follerin stood slowly. Thank you all for your concern. But I don't need validation to know what love feels like. Son, Pastor Adelaide called. Follerin didn't turn back. This meeting is over. Later he told Amaka everything. She listened, then broke. Tears streamed down her face. I'm not sure I can keep doing this, she whispered. They don't want me. I want you, Follerin said, taking her hand. And that's enough for now. The next day, Follerin planned something unexpected. He brought Amaka to a quiet rooftop above his firm's new project site. The sun was setting, casting golden light across the concrete skeleton of the building. I know the timing is wrong, he began, pulling a ring from his pocket, but the woman I want to spend the rest of my life with is here. Amaka froze, tears returning. I don't have all the answers, he said. But I know who I want beside me through them. He knelt on the gravel. Marry me. Amaka hesitated, overwhelmed. Your mother will never accept me. Then she'll have to learn. After a long silence, she whispered, yes. Follerin stood and slipped the ring on her finger. They kissed as the last sliver of sun dipped beneath the horizon. It was simple, intimate, sacred. Later that night, he posted the news on his business WhatsApp group. Within an hour, a maid called. You've disgraced me. You gave me no choice, Follerin replied, voice calm. She said yes. A maid went silent, then hung up. But even in her fury, the news pierced her heart like a needle, and something began to unravel inside. 3 days later, a maid arrived unannounced. She stood in their living room, arms crossed. Marry her and I won't come. I won't bless it. You'll be dead to me. Amaka stood frozen beside Follerin. Mum, he said quietly, I don't want to choose. But if you force me to, I choose her. You're my only son. A maid shouted. You'll cast me aside for a girl with a sewing machine? No, Mum, he said. You've already cast me aside. Tears rimmed her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. You will regret this. Follerin took Amaka's hand. Then I'll grieve early. The silence that followed was deafening. A maid turned and stormed out. Amaka sat down slowly. That felt like a funeral. She buried herself, Follerin whispered. That night, he held her tighter than ever, while a maid sat alone in her big house, staring at a picture of her late husband. She wondered what he would say now, if he would have sided with tradition, or with love. They married at a quiet registry in Ikoyi. Only 15 people attended, close friends, loyal cousins, and a few colleagues. Amaka wore a hand-sewn ivory gown. Folarin wore the same fitted suit she once stitched for him. They said "I do," under the soft whispers of palm trees, tears glistening in their eyes. But just before the vows, an older woman walked in. Imade's estranged sister, Auntie Agnes. "I'm not here to stop anything," she said. "Just to bear witness." After the ceremony, she pulled Folarin aside. "She was once you know. Your mum." "What?" "She fell in love with a mechanic named Boyega. Your grandma hated him. She chose family pride over her heart. It broke her." Folarin froze. "I never knew that. She never wanted you to know. But now, maybe it's time." Folarin watched Amaka laughing with the flower girl and whispered, "Maybe it is." That night, Amaka laid her head on his chest. "Do you think she'll ever come around?" "I don't know," he replied, stroking her hair. "But love doesn't lose. It just takes time." Imade sat on her porch, sipping tea. Auntie Agnes walked in slowly, pulling up a chair. "You went to the wedding?" Imade said without looking up. "Yes," Agnes replied. "It was beautiful. Quiet. Honest." Imade frowned. "So now I'm the villain." "No," Agnes said gently. "But you're repeating history." Imade didn't answer. Agnes leaned closer. "Remember Boyega?" Imade flinched. "You gave him up to keep your mother's approval. And you never smiled the same after that." "I did what was right," Imade muttered. "Was it?" Agnes asked. "Do you sleep well at night?" Imade swallowed hard. "I've seen that girl, Imade. Amaka. She's kind. Resilient. The kind you once were." Imade's hands shook slightly. "You don't have to lose your son like you lost love," Agnes added. That night, Imade sat on her bed, staring at an old letter, Boyega's farewell note. The handwriting was shaky, but the words still burned. "I hope you one day forgive yourself for loving me quietly." She looked out the window at the stars. For the first time in years, tears fell freely. It started with a cough, then dizziness, then a fainting spell at the church service. Imade was rushed to the hospital. The doctor diagnosed a severe case of hypertension, years of untreated stress and grief finally boiling over. When Folarin got the call, he froze. "I don't know if she wants to see me," he whispered to Amaka. "You're her son," Amaka replied. "Go." To his surprise, Amaka packed a bag of essentials and added homemade okra soup. "If she won't let me in, at least she'll eat." At the hospital, Imade lay pale against white sheets. Folarin approached, heart tight. "Mum?" She opened her eyes slowly. "You came." "I had to." They sat in silence until the nurse walked in, followed by Amaka. Imade stiffened. "You brought her?" Amaka stepped forward with calm grace. "Good afternoon, Ma. I just came to help." Folarin held his breath. But Imade said nothing. That evening, Amaka wiped Imade's forehead, adjusted her blanket and spoon-fed her gently. "You don't have to," Imade whispered. "I want to," Amaka replied. "Your family." Imade said nothing. But a part of her cracked. The following week, Imade was discharged, still weak but recovering. Amaka visited daily. She brought soup, helped with laundry, and even sat quietly reading psalms with her. One afternoon, Amaka entered with a small gift, a soft, colorful head wrap she'd sewn by hand. "For you, Ma. To keep your head warm." Imade took it with trembling fingers. "You made this?" "Yes, Ma." Silence stretched. Then Imade nodded once. "Thank you." Later that week, a neighbor, Mama Ikat, stopped by. "Oh, I love that scarf. Where did you buy it?" Imade hesitated, then murmured, "My daughter-in-law made it." The words hung in the air, fragile but real. Mama Ikat smiled. "She has good taste." When Amaka came in, Imade didn't flinch. She even asked, "Do you have more of those?" Amaka smiled, eyes glistening. "I can make a matching one for your wrapper." And for the first time since Folarin's childhood, Imade laughed. Just a little. But it was something. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood. "Have you heard? Madame Imade's son married a tailor." "I saw the girl. She's always walking quietly like she owns nothing." But not all voices were cruel. During a rainy afternoon, the compound gutter flooded, threatening a widow's shop nearby. Amaka had been passing by and rushed to help, lifting sacks, unblocking drains, even carrying the woman's goods to safety. Imade watched from her balcony. Mama Fatima, a longtime neighbor, approached her later. That girl, she helped busy when no one else did. She did? Imaid asked, genuinely surprised. Yes, I thought you said she was a nobody. But that girl behaves better than most rich people I know. Imaid didn't answer. She just stared at the scarf on her table. That evening she saw Amaka through the window, sewing, laughing with children from next door, sharing puff-puff. And the walls she built around her heart began to crumble. Amaka was late. Not just late but glowing. At first she said nothing. But after a week of suspicion she bought a test. It was positive. When she told Folarin, he lifted her off the ground, tears in his eyes. You're carrying our baby. I'm going to be a father. They danced in the living room like schoolchildren. I think it's time we tried one more time with your mum, Amaka said, clutching her stomach. For the baby. That Sunday they visited Imaid together, bringing a small gift box wrapped in gold. Inside was a white baby onesie with the words, Grandma in training. Imaid opened the box slowly. Her eyes darted between the onesie and Amaka's soft belly. I'm pregnant, Ma, Amaka said gently. We wanted you to know first. Imaid said nothing. Her hands trembled, but her face remained unreadable. She set the box aside. Would you like some tea? She asked. Folarin's heart sank. Amaka's smile faded. They drank tea in silence and left. But later that night, Imaid stood alone in the hallway holding the onesie to her chest, and wept. The knock came early, just past 6 a.m. Amaka opened the door in her wrapper, and froze. Imaid stood there, hair unwrapped, clutching the baby onesie. I was up all night, she said. I kept hearing my mother's voice in my head, telling me not to choose love. And I did. I lost my chance at happiness. Amaka's throat tightened. I don't want to lose this grandchild, Imaid whispered. Or my son. Or you. Tears spilled freely now. Please. Forgive me. Amaka stepped forward, wrapped her arms around the trembling woman, and whispered, We've been waiting for you. Behind them, Folarin appeared, speechless. He walked over and joined the hug. That morning, Imaid sat at their breakfast table for the first time. She touched Amaka's growing belly and asked, Do you have names yet? Amaka chuckled. Maybe we'll name her Grace. Imaid smiled, brushing a tear away. That's fitting. She's already teaching me. And for the first time in forever, the family sat together. Not divided by pride but united by love. 2 Sundays after her early morning breakthrough, Imaid surprised everyone. She invited the entire extended family for lunch. Cousins, aunties, uncles, even Pastor Adalai and Mama Stella. The same faces who had once judged and mocked Amaka. No one knew why they were summoned, but curiosity filled the compound like steam. Amaka helped set the table, unsure what was happening. She's been calm all week. I'm scared. Folarin squeezed her hand. Maybe this time, silence isn't danger. When everyone had eaten and murmurs of departure rose, Imaid stood at the center of the living room. The chatter fell into silence. I gathered you all, she began, her voice steady but soft, because I have something to say. Amaka froze beside the doorway. Folarin turned slowly to his mother. I owe someone in this room an apology, Imaid said. A big one. Gasps flitted through the room like wind. She turned to Amaka. I judged you before I knew you. I spoke harshly, cruelly. I forgot the kind of woman I used to dream my son would marry, not wealthy, not perfect, but strong, kind, and full of grace. Tears welled in Amaka's eyes. You didn't win me over with speeches. You did it by loving without resentment, caring even when I rejected you, and healing wounds you didn't cause. I was wrong. Imaid took 2 steps forward and knelt, knees on the tiled floor. A collective gasp echoed. Forgive me, Amaka. Not just for my pride, but for trying to rob you of your dignity. Amaka ran forward, lifting her gently. Please, Ma, no. You don't need to kneel. I do, Imaid whispered. Because I finally see you. And I thank God my son did too. The room erupted in applause, tears, and stunned silence. Even Pastor Adalai nodded in respect. That day, Amaka became more than just Folarin's wife. She became the woman who changed an entire family, with patience. The following month, Imaid planned something no one expected. A baby shower. She made phone calls, designed invitation cards, hired a caterer, and even asked Amaka's friends for fabric choices. She likes sunflower yellow, Kemi had said, and banana puff puff. The house was transformed. Yellow balloons filled the courtyard. Traditional drums played softly in the background. Guests arrived dressed in Ankara prints, bearing gifts and love. When Amaka and Folarin walked in, they froze. Surprise? Everyone chorused. Amaka's hands flew to her mouth. You did all this? A maid stepped forward, holding a small crown-shaped cake topper. For my daughter. The words sent shivers down Amaka's spine. She hugged her mother-in-law tightly. Thank you, Ma. No, Amaka, a maid said. Call me Mum. Throughout the day, a maid introduced her proudly. Meet my daughter, Amaka. She's the reason my grandson will be born into joy. Even Mama Stella was speechless. At one point, a maid pulled Amaka aside. I'm sorry I tried to break you. You remind me of the woman I wanted to be. Amaka smiled. You're still becoming her. That night, Folarin whispered, she called you her daughter. She meant it, Amaka whispered back. I felt it. It happened on a Thursday morning. Amaka felt the first contraction while folding baby clothes. At first she thought it was gas. Then her water broke. Folarin panicked. Is it time? Should I grab the bag? Amaka laughed through pain. If you don't, I'll give birth on the floor. He rushed to the car, bag in one hand, phone in the other. A maid met them at the hospital, already waiting. How did you? I've been on standby all week, she said calmly. I wasn't going to miss this. The hours crawled by. Labor was long. Painful. Amaka screamed. Cried. Gripped Folarin's hand so tightly he lost feeling in it. A maid never left the hallway, pacing like a lioness. Finally the nurse stepped out, beaming. She's fine. And, it's a girl. Folarin burst into tears. They were led in one at a time. A maid entered last. Amaka looked exhausted but radiant, cradling the tiny child wrapped in yellow. A maid approached slowly. Her hands trembled as she reached out. Would you like to hold her, Mum? Amaka asked. A maid nodded, wordless. The baby opened her eyes briefly, then yawned. A maid cradled her gently and whispered, Welcome to a world your grandmother almost ruined. But now, I will help build it with you. She kissed the baby's forehead, tears streaming. That moment sealed the healing. 3 generations stood in one room, connected not by blood alone, but by love that fought through fire. Sunlight streamed softly through the lace curtains as the sound of baby coos filled the living room. The Adegbite house, once silent and brooding, now echoed with laughter, baby giggles, and the rustle of small footsteps, thanks to little Grace. 2 months had passed since her birth, and everything had changed. A maid, once the feared matriarch, had become a doting grandmother. She was often seen pacing the courtyard with Grace nestled against her chest, humming lullabies Amaka had never imagined hearing from her lips. Your grandma used to command students like a general, Folarin whispered one morning watching the scene. Now she sings Ba Ba Black Sheep, like a pro. Amaka smiled, cradling a mug of pap. That's what love does, it softens iron. Later that week, Amaka received a call from a local family photographer, Mr. Kalawol. Your mother-in-law booked a session, he said. Family portrait. Saturday. Everyone must be there. Amaka's brows shot up. She said that? Yes. She was very clear, dress well, no late coming, and bring my granddaughter in white lace. Folarin chuckled when he heard. This is big. Saturday came quickly. By noon, the compound buzzed with excitement. Kemi helped Amaka dress little Grace in a white lace gown with a sunflower yellow sash. Folarin wore a crisp blue kaftan, while Amaka dazzled in a matching iro and buba she made herself, hand-embroidered with subtle symbols of hope and family. A maid? She emerged from her room in a royal purple iro with golden embroidery. Around her neck was a pendant, a small locket with a photo of baby Grace tucked inside. Everyone gathered under the mango tree in the courtyard, where a white backdrop had been set up. Okay, let's do one of all 4 of you, Mr. Kalawol called. Amaka stood with Grace in her arms. Folarin held her gently at the waist. A maid stood to the side, then slowly stepped in. She touched Amaka's shoulder. Come closer, Mum, Amaka said. A maid blinked, then smiled. Click. The camera captured it, the warmth in a maid's eyes, the pride in Folarin's posture, the peace in Amaka's smile, and the softness of Grace's tiny face as she rested her head against her mother's neck. Mr. Kalawol lowered the camera. That's the one. Later that evening, a maid sat in her room flipping through the printed proofs. She paused on the group portrait. Her fingers hovered over it, then she stood, walked to the hallway and reached for the wall. A row of plaques hung there, her retirement award, years of teaching certificates, photos with governors, and even the newspaper feature from her principalship days. She took them down one by one. In their place, she hung the framed family photo. As she stepped back to look, Folarin entered quietly. You replaced your awards? He asked. They're in the drawer, she replied. But this is my real legacy. Folarin placed an arm around her shoulder. I never thought we'd get here. Imaid sighed. Neither did I. Pride is a high wall. But children like Grace, they tear them down. The next morning, Amaka noticed the change on the wall and stood frozen for a full minute. Fola, she whispered, come see this. He came over and together they stared at the portrait. She replaced her whole identity, for us. Amaka's eyes watered. Maybe, now I can call this place home too. At lunch, Imaid casually remarked, your shop's getting too small. We should consider expanding. Amaka choked on her rice. Sorry, what? You said your client list is growing. I know a space near the roundabout, more central. Folarin burst out laughing. Mum, are you suggesting a business investment? Imaid raised her brows. I'm suggesting I believe in her. Amaka smiled full and wide. Thank you, Mum. Imaid reached over and took Grace from her lap. She's going to inherit all this one day. She'll need her mother's name to be known everywhere. And just like that, the woman who once screamed, not under my roof, was now the one building that roof higher. That night, Amaka stood on the balcony with Folarin, Grace tucked between them. Do you realize, she whispered, this all started with rejection? Yeah, he replied. But it ended with redemption. They both stared at the warm, glowing light pouring from the house, the sound of Imaid singing to her granddaughter floating gently out the window. This home had changed. But more importantly, they had changed it. And soon, they'd make it even bigger. 6 months later, the Adegbite home was livelier than ever. Baby Grace had just learned to crawl, her chubby hands slapping the tiled floors as she chased a squeaky yellow duck. Her giggles echoed through the corridor, a sound so infectious it made even the most solemn neighbors smile. Imaid had become a different woman entirely. Her eyes sparkled more, her tone was softer, and her presence warmer. She started a weekly prayer and book club for young mothers and even helped Amaka plan her business expansion. Folarin, watching from the sidelines, often whispered to himself, I don't recognize her, but I love her. One sunny Saturday morning, Imaid called for a family meeting. Come and sit, she gestured to Amaka and Folarin as she arranged cold drinks and chin-chin on the table. Amaka raised a brow. Did we do something wrong? Imaid smiled. No. I just have an announcement. Folarin tilted his head. What's going on, Mum? She cleared her throat and pulled out a brown envelope, sliding it across the table toward them. Amaka picked it up and opened it slowly, reading the document inside. It was a property deed. I'm renovating the back wing of the house, Imaid said, her tone matter-of-fact. Adding a private entrance, a small living room and a second kitchen. Folarin's brows furrowed. For what? For you, Imaid replied. I want you to move in, until your new place is built. You'll have your own space. Amaka blinked. You want us to live here? Imaid nodded. I once shouted, not under my roof. But I've realized, this isn't just my roof anymore. Folarin sat back slowly, processing. Mum? Imaid reached out and placed a hand over his. This house is too big without love in it. I've spent years guarding its walls. Now I want to fill it, with family, with joy, and with forgiveness. Amaka's eyes glistened. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. The renovation began the following week. Workers came in and out of the compound daily, hammering, painting, plastering. Imaid supervised every step. I want it to be perfect for them, she told the foreman. And make sure the baby's room has enough sunlight. One morning, Folarin walked into the kitchen and saw Imaid teaching Amaka how to make ofada stew the old-fashioned way, with palm oil thick enough to stain a shirt forever. You're not using seasoning cubes? Amaka asked. Real flavor doesn't come in packets, Imaid replied. It comes from patience. Folarin smiled and snapped a picture quietly on his phone. A moment he'd one day show Grace when she asked what changed everything. Weeks passed and the new wing was ready. Amaka stood in the freshly painted room with yellow curtains and a carved nameplate above the cot. Grace's corner. She turned to Folarin. It's perfect. Imaid walked in holding a tray of zobo and groundnut. I know it's temporary, she said, setting the tray down. But I hope it feels like home. Amaka took her hand. It already does. That evening, a small family dinner was held to mark the move-in. Just the three of them and baby Grace. Folarin raised his glass of malt. To new beginnings. Amaka raised hers. To family. Imaid raised hers last. To love, louder than pride. Deeper than status. And stronger than fear. They clinked their glasses. Later, after everyone had gone to bed, a maid stood by the door of the nursery watching Grace sleep. She whispered a prayer. "Thank you, God. I once nearly broke what you gave me. But you gave me time to make it right." Behind her, Amaka appeared in the hallway. "Mom?" A maid turned. "I didn't mean to wake her." "She's fine," Amaka said. "But I heard you." A maid smiled softly. "I meant every word." They stood together in silence, the sound of Grace's tiny breaths filling the room. Then Amaka whispered, "This roof, it's ours now." A maid placed an arm around her. "Yes, ours." Liked it? Thumbs up, subscribe and join the AfriHeart fam. Your support fuels our stories. Until next time.